At Mayo Clinic in Florida, we're detecting the undetectable. Using advanced AI technology, our experts can accurately detect signals in the human voice that are indicators of coronary artery disease. We're making more possible at Mayo Clinic because every day we're doing what's never been done. Learn more at mayoclinic.org/possible. Mayo Clinic. You know where to go.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the nation. The phone number is 877-973-7425. I am delighted to have you with me. You can text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777. Get the show notes, the live stream, the podcast, everything. The defense cross-examination is set to start soon. They breathlessly are waiting for it on television. We're not going to talk about it. We got other stuff to talk about. So, occasionally, I will talk about something here in my home state of Georgia, and some of you get upset saying, I'm listening in Montana or Seattle or wherever, and why do I care? This is something that really should be a national story, and it's telling that it's not. Americans on the political left talk a lot about shattered norms and how it's always the right shattering the norms, and essentially they're doing something the left doesn't like, therefore the right is shattering norms. As you are aware, I practice law. And one of the norms in American political life is that judges are not supposed to stake out a position politically that could come before them. It's a norm in American society, and it doesn't matter whether the judiciary is elected or not. They're not supposed to take position. Now, you may know where their position is, but they're not supposed to campaign on taking a position. They're not supposed to campaign on, if you elect me, I will render a verdict in this direction. That is a norm in American society going back to the foundations of our republic. And it's being shattered in Georgia by a man named John Barrow. He's a highly ambitious former congressman who craves elected office like a crack addict craves cocaine. John Barrow got booted out of office. He was redistricted out of office, and he has been desperately trying to get back in. He doesn't only just look like Gollum. I mean, he's very Gollum-esque in his quest to return to elected power. He wants his ring of power. It is his precious, and by gosh golly, he's going to get it with his aw shucks demeanor that comes across as some genteel Southern lawyer when he is a progressive activist. John Barrow is running for the Georgia Supreme Court, and he is pretty explicitly saying, if you put him on the court, he will make sure that abortion comes to Georgia. In fact, the Judicial Ethics Council in the state of Georgia is considering disciplinary measures because it is against the ethics rules of judges to stake out a position on the campaign trail. And he's claiming it's a violation of his freedom of speech to tell everybody, if you elect me, this is how I'm going to decide my cases, and I'm going to work to bring abortion to the state of Georgia. He is defying the judicial norms. Now, if this were a Republican in the state of Georgia doing this, You and I know damn well every national news outlet would make this a front page story. The New York Times would condemn it on the front page and have an editorial page editorial condemning it as well. But because it's a progressive activist who wants to impose Georgia or impose abortion on the state of Georgia when the voters don't want it, well, they're silent. They don't want to highlight it. The governor in Georgia, Brian Kemp, has started running ads against John Barrow, pointing out he's a progressive activist. He is a hyper partisan progressive activist, former Democratic member of Congress, and he's run for like everything in the state of Georgia. He's lost repeatedly, and he's convinced because Supreme Court elections in the state of Georgia are low interest or no interest that he has a built-in base of support given his known clout and organizing of the Democratic Party that he'll be able to sweep into office against a judge, by the way, a good Supreme Court justice in Georgia who is not running a partisan campaign, has followed the judicial ethics rules and has patently avoided staking out political positions. If you're in Georgia, you need to ask yourself, do you want to put on the Supreme Court of Georgia a man whose mind is already made up on the issue? Because he's campaigning that if you put him in a position of power on the Supreme Court, he's going to decide a particular way. Think about this in your state. Most states, not all states, but most states have elected judiciaries. Some of them are partisan. Some of them are explicitly partisan. Most of them are nonpartisan. So you got most states have elected judiciaries, and most of those are nonpartisan judiciaries. Can you imagine the norm shattering in any of these states where you have a judge run for office and say, listen, if you elect me to the Supreme Court of our state, I will make sure no one ever faces the death penalty? Can you imagine that? That's the position. Doesn't matter the facts, doesn't matter the law. He's essentially saying that person that if you put me on the Supreme Court of your state, I'm going to work to override all prior judicial precedent. Who cares about stare decisis? Who cares about the law? I'm going to impose my will. I think the abortion is wrong or the death penalty is wrong. Therefore, I'm going to do this. What about you have someone campaign and say, I think that we overcriminalize black men, so if you elect me to the Supreme Court of your state, I'm going to make sure that I vote in favor of any black man who comes to this court because the system is systemically racist and they need an advocate. So it doesn't matter what they did, what they're accused of. If they file an appeal, I'm siding with them. Do you want a justice on your Supreme Court who looks at the facts, looks at the law, and decides? Or do you want a justice going into it, you know he's got a political agenda and he's going to impose it on the law? That's what John Barrow's doing. He's got a political agenda and he's going to impose it on the law. And those of you in the state of Georgia need to know he's on the ballot for the Georgia Supreme Court. And he is running, saying, if you put me on, I'm going to impose my will and make sure abortion comes to the state of Georgia. Now, for those of you who are pro-choice, you may want that, but he's not going to stop there. If he's that open about abortion, he's also a reliable progressive leftist on everything. He's going to impose his progressive will on everything. Businesses and business law, crime. You're worried about crime in the state. You put this guy on, I assure you he's going to be like worst of the worst with the Soros judges letting people out of prison, giving permissive licentiousness to criminals. If he's willing to be that open and progressive on one thing, you know where this is going to head. Do you really want someone on your Supreme Court, Georgia, who's going to side with the criminals and make you less safe? It's happening in other states. You get him on the one thing, you're going to get him on all of it. And again, if this were a national issue, if this were a national thing, if this were a Republican, it would be a national story. CNN would cover it. MSNBC would cover it. They'd be denouncing anyone's, this person's running a nonpartisan judicial, and he's already, can you imagine if someone were running for the Georgia Supreme Court right now and said, I think the Fani Willis trial against Donald Trump is a witch hunt, and if you elect me to the Georgia Supreme Court, I will make sure Fani Willis has hell to pay. When that appeal gets to me from the Court of Appeals, I will make sure she's disqualified. I will vote against her. What would the national media do? What would you do? What would the national conversation be? You see, that this is a Georgia issue, but look at it from a national scope. You know and I know what the national, not local, but national media reaction would be if a person ran for the Georgia Court of, where the case is right now. The Georgia Court of Appeals has it right now, and they're elected. If someone ran for the Georgia Court of Appeals and said, you put me on that Georgia Court of Appeals, I'm going to protect Donald Trump. I think there was a miscarriage of justice, and I'm going to work to protect him. I'm going to shut down this case. You put me on that Court of Appeals. What would the national media reaction be to that guy in Georgia? It would be a national news story, and there would be national outrage that this was an affront to our republic and our judicial system to have someone doing this. But here comes this guy, and he's a progressive, and he's on the side of the media because he's saying, if you put me on the court, I'm going to side with the left's abortion agenda. I guarantee you'll know exactly which way I'm going to decide when I get there. And they're all quiet about it. They're all silent about it because they're all okay with it because he's on their side. If it were for Trump, it was the Court of Appeals, there'd be hell to pay in the national press. Notice how nationally the media is quiet about this story. They can say, well, this is just Georgia. It doesn't apply to us. But you just swap the scenario, make it about the Trump trial. What do you think would happen nationally? Those of you in Georgia, you need to be mindful that this Supreme Court, you got to vote all the way down the ballot. And you got to vote against this guy. You do not want to put someone on your court who is an explicit, expressed partisan with an explicit, expressed partisan agenda. You do not want to do that. Andrew Pinson is the Supreme Court justice who John Barrow is running against. Andrew Pinson is a noted jurist. He's respected across the board. Democrats, Republicans alike respect him. He refuses to take a partisan position. He refuses to campaign with partisans. He's doing what the law expects him to do. And John Barrow is a political progressive opportunist who is defying the legal rules and the ethics rules because he's desperately Gollum-esque craving his ring of power again. Do you want someone who wants power so badly that they're willing to violate the judicial ethics rules to get it? I think you should make up your mind and go with Andrew Pinson in Georgia. Now, side note here, I'm getting a lot of phone calls. The 3rd Congressional District in Georgia is an open seat. I've got Mike Crane and Philip Singleton are running. They're both friends of mine. I endorse Philip Singleton. I would vote for Philip Singleton in District 3. Mike Crane as well is a great guy. I don't have a bad word to say about Mike. I promised Philip I would support Philip, but those are the two people. If you got to pick between them, Mike and Philip Singleton, they're both great guys. But the issue here is not a local race here in Georgia, but a national precedent about a man running for a Supreme Court position, or running for a Supreme Court seat in a state that elects its Supreme Court justices, who has defied judicial ethics and the norms of the race to stake out an explicitly partisan progressive position and expects you to vote for him, and the national media would eat this person alive were he a Republican doing it about the Trump trial. You know it and I know it, and the double standard is there for every single person to see. It should be unacceptable to everyone. You want to talk about shattering norms. You do that in this case, it's only going to get worse from here on out. If you do not want your judiciary weaponized and made explicitly partisan, you've got to go vote against John Barrow. Also, if you are not a hyper-woke progressive and you oppose letting prisoners out of prison, you want to go stop this guy too because he's a super radical progressive. But nationally, again, just to beat a dead horse, intentionally so. Where do you think the New York Times and CNN and the rest would be if he were campaigning on stopping Fani Willis's prosecution? You put him on the court and he'll shut it down. You know it would be a national news story. But because he's running as a far-left progressive abortion rights supporter, explicitly saying he will do everything he can to push the judiciary towards abortion rights in the state of Georgia, the media has kept it silent. They do not want to expose it because they hope he gets a pass and gets on the court so he can wreak havoc with the judiciary in the state of Georgia. You are on notice, Georgia. You do not want this guy on your court.
Blinds.com Cyber Monday Last Chance is happening now. Don't miss out on up to 45% off site-wide. A Blinds.com design expert can help you make the perfect selection on your schedule. We can handle everything from measure to your whole home installed for one low cost. With over 25 million windows covered, Blinds.com is the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings. Save up to 45% site-wide, plus a free professional measure right now at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
All right, listen, Charlie says I am being bombarded by people calling, asking, please, can you give me your position on X, Y, and Z people for running for office in Georgia? So for those of you in Georgia, I will put it in writing, and I'll let you know when I do it. I'll give you the rundown on the ballot of how I'm going to vote. But for your nonpartisan races for the court systems, the incumbents, all the incumbents are the ones you want to vote for. It's progressive activists who are trying to run a backdoor effort in Georgia to throw conservatives off the courts because they're nonpartisan races. People don't know. So vote for the incumbents in the judiciary. Now, what's his name? Kansas City's kicker. Have y'all heard this speech? Harrison Butker. Harrison Butker from the Kansas City Chiefs. Y'all listen to this.
Bad policies and poor leadership have negatively impacted major life issues. Things like abortion, IVF, surrogacy, euthanasia, as well as a growing support for degenerate cultural values in media, all stem from the pervasiveness of disorder. Our own nation is led by a man who publicly and proudly proclaims his Catholic faith, but at the same time is delusional enough to make the sign of the cross during a pro-abortion rally. He has been so vocal in his support for the murder of innocent babies that I'm sure to many people it appears that you can be both Catholic and pro-choice. He is not alone. From the man behind the COVID lockdowns to the people pushing dangerous gender ideologies onto the youth of America, they all have a glaring thing in common. They are Catholic. This is an important reminder that being Catholic alone doesn't cut it. These are the sorts of things we are told in polite society to not bring up. You know, the difficult and unpleasant things. But if we are going to be men and women for this time in history, we need to stop pretending that the Church of Nice is a winning proposition. We must always speak and act in charity, but never mistake charity for cowardice. It is safe to say that over the past few years, I've gained quite the reputation for speaking my mind. I never envisioned myself nor wanted to have this sort of a platform.
That's his graduation commencement address for Benedictine College in Kansas, a conservative institution. It went over well there, but man, the sports press is lighting the guy on fire. Vision Computers wants to help you avoid the technical fires at your office. If you go to visioncomputers.com or call them at 404-COMPUTE, they can be your tech support. In 15 seconds or less, you can get the answer to what's going on with your computer. Visioncomputers.com or 404-COMPUTE. So you got a problem and you aren't a genius at computers. You are a genius at accounting or at the law or a dentist's office or scheduling or you name it. And you got to figure something out on your computer. Vision Computers for $179 a year, not a month. They can be your tech support solution. You don't have in-house IT? They can do that heavy lifting for you. $179 a year per computer, not a month. They can also build computers for you, and they're going to save you money. They're going to get you what you need and want, not one size fits all. They spend time with you, and then their tech support comes completely for free. So if you're updating your computers in your office and you use Vision, you get the tech support for free. 404-COMPUTE, visioncomputers.com. Tell them I sent you. You get an even better deal. 404-COMPUTE. Let Vision Computers take care of your tech support. Hello there. Welcome. It's Eric Erickson. I want to spend a few more moments on Harrison Butker. So he's from Decatur, Georgia, which is a progressive enclave in the Atlanta area. And he went to Georgia Tech, where my kid wanted to go to Georgia Tech. Y'all, I'm not making this up. People thought I was being funny. I'm not. So my daughter really wanted to go to Georgia Tech. She decided not to for a couple of reasons. One was having to discuss pronouns with one of the college advisors who was wearing the "Ask Me About My Pronouns" button when we went on campus, and my kid was like, I thought I was getting going to a school that was pro-science. But then also she, during the summer, did a on-campus program, and this is people thought I was making this up, and I was not making it up. She had roommates. She got to stay in the dorm. It was a program on robotics and stuff, and her roommates were an atheist, a Wiccan, and a Buddhist. And then next door was the transgender Satanist. And that was a bit too much for her, and she just decided, don't think I want to go here. So she changed her mind after being very committed to going there. Changed her mind. She just decided that the woke politics stuff was just too much. And while Tech has gotten better, the Georgia Tech has a history of being deeply, deeply hostile to people of faith. In fact, I know students who won a federal lawsuit against Tech for their hostility towards people of faith, and it's been an ongoing problem. The administration there always assures us that they fix the problem, and yet the students still have just these absurd stories about that campus's hostility to faith. Harrison Butker went to Georgia Tech. So he gives this speech. I played it, just if you missed it, if you're just coming back. Again, this is Harrison Butker. He is the kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs. Top of his game, amazing kicks, winning the Super Bowl. And this is him. He is Catholic. He's from a very liberal enclave of Metro Atlanta called Decatur, Georgia. He now is the kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs, having gone to Georgia Tech. I think he played for the Carolina Panthers before going to the Chiefs. He is devoutly Catholic, and he is speaking, giving the commencement address to Benedictine College, which is in Kansas. Let's see here if I can fire him up.
Bad policies and poor leadership have negatively impacted major life issues. Things like abortion, IVF, surrogacy, euthanasia, as well as a growing support for degenerate cultural values in media, all stem from the pervasiveness of disorder. Our own nation is led by a man who publicly and proudly proclaims his Catholic faith, but at the same time is delusional enough to make the sign of the cross during a pro-abortion rally. He has been so vocal in his support for the murder of innocent babies that I'm sure to many people it appears that you can be both. He is not alone. From the man behind the COVID lockdowns to the people pushing dangerous gender ideology in America, they all have a glaring thing in common. They are Catholic. This is an important reminder that being Catholic alone doesn't cut it. These are the sorts of things we are told in polite society to not bring up. The difficult and unpleasant things. But if we are going to be men and women for this time in history, we need to stop pretending that the Church of Nice is a winning proposition. We must always speak and act in charity, but never mistake charity for cowardice.
Now, I'll stop there. I want to read you the media reaction, the headlines to Harrison Butker's commencement address. Yahoo Sports, Chiefs kicker Harrison Butker bashes Pride Month, tells women to stay in the kitchen. Washington Post, Harrison Butker, Chiefs kicker, discusses house, gay pride, abortion. Daily Mail, Chiefs kicker Harrison Butker urges men to fight against cultural emasculation and claims women are destined to be homemakers. Outsports, NFL player Harrison Butker attacks Pride Month, working women. The Hill, Kansas City Chiefs kicker blasts Biden, pro-choice movement, and commencement speech. Mediaite, Kansas City Chiefs kicker rails against Biden, dangerous gender ideologies in college graduation speech. Oh, and KUTV in Kansas, Chiefs kicker punts Biden over delusional abortion policy during graduation speech. Now, every single year in the United States, major institutions, good progressives get to come give the college commencement addresses. Several years ago at my alma mater, where my daughter is going to wind up going to my alma mater, Mercer University, I spoke at, they have Founders Day, and eons ago, Jesse Mercer founded the institution in Binsfield, Georgia, moved it eventually to Macon, Georgia, and occasionally they bring back an alumnus. Well, every year, occasionally, once a year, they bring back an alumnus to speak. I had to make accommodations to the angry white woke feminists in their comfortable shoes in the Women and Gender Studies department because they were uncomfortable with me speaking on campus. We're a progressive. No one on the right would have said anything, but the progressives are always upset when they have to listen to a conservative. They didn't have to come. Some of them attempted to stage a walkout, and then they asked me to stick around, which I was happy to do, and answer questions. To do an afternoon, do the speech, by the way, well received, had a lunch, well received, and then in the afternoon, go to a forum and answer people's questions of why did you say this mean thing I don't like? Why do you joke about feminists? I was actually asked, why do you make nasty jokes about feminists? And I said, because they're unhumored people and it's fun to laugh at them. That didn't go over well, but it's the truth. Some of them got up and left then. I had a blast. But I noted the double standard that never would a progressive have to do what I had to do to speak to my alma mater. Harrison Butker is never going to get asked to give the commencement speech at Georgia Tech despite being a famous celebrity football kicker. He will never, ever be asked by his university, alma mater, to give the commencement address despite his fame, fortune, celebrity, notoriety, and the fact that he went there because he's an open Catholic conservative. He'll never get asked to do the commencement address at Georgia Tech. But he got asked to do it at Benedictine College, a conservative Catholic institution, and the media is outraged that he opened his mouth and didn't stay in his lane. Let me read you some of what Harrison Butker said. He said that he's leaning into his vocation as a husband and a father and a man. And that, quote, part of what plagues our society is this lie that has been told to you that men are not necessary in the home or our communities. As men, we set the tone of the culture, and when that is absent, disorder, dysfunction, and chaos set in. This absence of men in the home is what plays a large role in the violence we see all around the nation. Be unapologetic in your masculinity. Fight against the cultural emasculation of men. Do hard things. Never settle for what is easy. He's 28 years old. He said that. Oh my gosh, profound thoughts. How dare he say these sorts of things? He's right. I think it is you, the women, who have had the most diabolical lies told to you. Some of you may go on to lead successful careers in the world, but I would venture to guess that the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and your children you will bring into this world. I can tell you that my beautiful wife, Isabel, would be the first to say her life truly started when she started living her vocation as a wife and a mother. I'm on this stage today able to be the man I am because I have a wife who leans into her vocation. I'm beyond blessed with the many talents God has given me, but it cannot be overstated that all my success is made possible because a girl I met in band class back in middle school would convert to the faith, become my wife, and embrace one of the most important titles of all, homemaker. The feminists of America, the left, they fall over fainting. How dare he say such a thing? That being a mom and a homemaker is this awful thing. And of course, you're rich. You play for the NFL. Of course, your wife can do it. You know, my wife is a stay-at-home mom. And before you say, well, of course, you're rich. When I was not wealthy, I worked extra jobs so that my wife could stay home. Now, it is not the choice that every woman makes, and I'm not going to judge. But it is a choice that we made, and what I have found is that my wife's choice to stay home is more often vilified than not. It's very notable. People get upset when you talk about this option as if it's some good thing, but the amount of people who vilify it. By the way, an emailer says I stand corrected, that Harrison Butker actually did speak at Georgia Tech. Good for them. I bet he didn't come out more partisanly opinionated at the time, and it's only, pretty much the case. It wasn't the sort of address he gave. I'm glad to be wrong. I'm glad they invited him back. I'm glad to correct myself, and thank you, Elizabeth, for emailing me that he did speak. And it was not nearly the, barn burner that he gave at Benedictine College. At least he was kind enough to tone it down to the sensibilities of Georgia Tech. But I'm glad they invited him. But now, here's the thing that really set people off in his speech at Benedictine College. And this is where he's getting the hate. He went after DEI and dangerous gender ideologies and the shift in the Catholic Church and maybe a little passive aggression towards where the current Pope is. And he said Catholics took pride in these sorts of things, not the deadly sin sort of pride that has an entire month dedicated to it. Oh, he said that, but the true God-centered pride that's cooperating with the Holy Ghost to glorify him. He brought up DEI and said, quote, "The world around us says that we should keep our beliefs to ourselves whenever they go against the tyranny of diversity, equity, inclusion. We fear speaking truth because now, unfortunately, truth is in the minority." And he called out bad leaders who don't stay in their lanes. And, of course, you know the response from left is, stay in your lane, you're a kicker. Again, the whole point of me bringing this up is that if Harrison Butker were to show up and give a patently progressive speech, there would be no news. This would not be a news story. This is absolutely not going to be a story if someone shows up and gives a progressive commencement speech at any university in the United States of America. But you show up and you say conservative things that conservatives believe to a conservative Catholic institution, it becomes national headlines, and you get smeared and attacked by the left, by the sports writers, because the sports writers these days are some of the most political writers out there. Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition is back, and guess what? On the cover, it's women in business attire. I kid you not. Now, they're going to come out with a couple of different covers, ones with the fat woman in a bikini. I'm not making that up, and others, but this is the one they want to highlight. It's all these women in business attire and fancy dress, and interviewed on CBS this morning, because Gayle King of CBS this morning is one of the women in the suits. I'm sure you want to pay big money to see that. And essentially they say, well, what happened when you started putting transgender women and obese women on your covers and in your magazines? And the good, white, woke, awful, affluent, female, white, urban liberal said, well, we lost the people whose business we didn't want, and we hope we've gained the people whose business we wanted. We gained the sophisticated elite who want to look at dudes in bikinis, and we lost the bigots and the conservatives and the hicks and the rubes who just wanted to look at women in bikinis. That's essentially it. And by the way, Hillsdale, I gotta do an ad here in a minute, but by the way, you should understand that the business, of course, is folding. Sports Illustrated is not doing well, and the swimsuit edition, which was their lifeline and gravy train, is collapsing in sales because they've decided they would rather put dudes in bikinis than women in bikinis, and then tell you that, well, if you're upset about it, we didn't want your business anyway. So guess what? They're losing business. They'll lose some jobs. They'll eventually go out of business, but they'll feel good about it. But by God, don't you let a conservative Catholic kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs utter conservative things at a commencement address, because we would rather you just hear from progressives and live in a progressive world. They really don't like that we exist, do they? Now, Hillsdale College, by the way, I mentioned them, brain fart on my ad, but Hillsdale always has great conservatives as their commencement speakers. In fact, I hope that the next commencement speaker at Hillsdale will be an imprimis, which you should get. Right now, though, I want to tell you about China and its buy gold. I mentioned the Chinese price currency battle right now with the United States. You can buy 7. It's really the renminbi is the Chinese currency. For every dollar, it's a massive, massive imbalance. And the Chinese, to combat this, they're convinced that the strong dollar and the high interest rates in this country are going to crater our economy, and they're buying all the gold reserves possible. And it's the BRICS overall, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. They're all buying up massive gold deposits in the world, driving up the price of gold because they're convinced of economic instability in this country that's going to affect the world. Swiss America wants to help you protect your hard-earned assets. They see what's happening in the world. They want to give you their report, The Secret War on Cash, completely free. Your report is completely free, The Secret War on Cash. All you have to do is call or text my name, Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 800-289-2646. The all-out war on cash includes digital forms of currency. It is spreading. With China buying up all this gold and the BRICS buying up all the gold, it's big warning signs for where things are headed. Swiss America wants to educate you. They want to help you protect your assets. They want to educate you on the secret war on cash. You can get this report completely free, 800-289-2646. Text them my name, Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 800-289-2646. You'll get a link back. You'll be able to follow through. You can go to SwissAmerica.com/Eric today, but it's real easy, 800-289-2646. Just call or text my name. Message and data rates apply. Hello there. Yes, you can text recipes. I've been cooking a lot, trying to get new recipes. I don't want to steal them from other people. I want them to be mine. But I do have some I need to send out, and I've been negligent, so I will do those. In any event, I want to end the show with a statement by Janet Yellen. Janet Yellen is Joe Biden's Treasury Secretary. She used to be the chair of the Federal Reserve, and I just want to listen to this.
The cost of living in many areas is very high, and it is a concern to Americans. And it is President Biden's top priority to do all he can to bring down the cost of living.
To bring down the cost of living, it's his top concern. Janet Yellen is about the only member of this administration who's actually been willing to talk about it that way. The Biden administration has insisted the whole time that everything is fine and blamed Donald Trump for inflation. So here's what I know about Janet Yellen from people on the right who know her, members of Congress, who think she's definitely a liberal economist, pretty progressive in her views, but also she's not a political person. She doesn't like to play the political game. In fact, the Biden White House does not like her to be any sort of surrogate for them because she's just not willing to play the political games that they want their people to play. You know, you get Anthony Blinken out there. Anthony Blinken's going to toe the party line. Janet Yellen is oftentimes not going to, even as she is a reliable progressive. The fact that she's out there talking about the cost of living, knowing it's an issue, probably, again, something the Biden team needs to pay attention to in politics because they have acted very often as if they think everything is fine now, and because inflation is reduced in the rate it's going up, that it's actually gone down. She, again, the only member of the Biden team to point out that just because inflation's gone down doesn't mean prices have gone down. It just means the rate of growth in prices has slowed. Everybody else in the White House really did seem to think that, oh, inflation's down means prices are down. No, these people are clueless. Maybe they should probably have her out there more then.